Three, two, one.
Welcome to our channel, the Horror Chronicles. To stay updated on all the latest realistic horror stories, please subscribe to my channel and check out the previous stories if you haven't already. Kindly give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends to help us reach our goal of 2,000 likes together. Before I begin, I want you to close the door of your room and put on your headphones and prepare to be scared out of your wits. Grab a cup of coffee and enjoy. Are you ready to live in a house built over a cemetery? Many horror stories revolve around a haunted house, and after being exposed to many terrifying situations, the protagonists of the story discover that the house was built on an old cemetery, and that the ghosts are angry because of the desecration of their shrines. Haunted house stories may seem normal, but the strange thing is when a street with all its buildings becomes a hotbed of angry ghosts, as it is believed that the buildings of that street were built on the ruins of an old cemetery. While Mr. Sam Heaney was reading the daily newspapers while drinking a cup of coffee, an advertisement caught his attention on one of its pages regarding homes for sale in a neighborhood of Houston, Texas. He called his wife, Judith, to tell her this good news. He had found his dream home at the right price. The couple traveled to the city of Houston and received the new house after they signed the purchase contract, and that was in 1983. The couple thought they had found their dream home. When the couple moved into that house and settled in it, Sam decided to make engineering changes in the house, including digging a swimming pool in the back garden. And Sam actually contacted the building contractor and asked him to come to inspect the garden and take measurements for the swimming pool. And the next day, work began in the garden of Sam's house, and the drilling equipment arrived in the garden. On that day, Sam was also surprised by an old man standing in front of his house's front door. The man's features were harsh, and time had carved out the details of his African features. Sam thought that he is one of the construction workers, but the man surprised him by asking him, "I heard that you are going to dig a swimming pool in your garden. Is this true?" "Yes, I will. The house is mine, and I don't think there is any reason why I shouldn't. And by the way, let me ask you, who are you, and why do you ask?" "My name is Jasper Norton, and I live near here, and I advise you not to mess with the dead, lest you be haunted by ghosts." "What do you mean? I didn't understand anything you said." "Let me explain to you the history of this region. This land belonged to the textile merchant, Mr. William McKinney, and after the American Civil War, Mr. McKinney gave this land to a group of slaves to live in after he freed them from slavery. These slaves resided here and established homes, a church, and a cemetery of their own, and they lived here until their homes were exposed to a fire that destroyed their property, and the survivors were forced to leave the place. After which a construction company bought the land and leveled it, and built these dwellings on it. So I think that your house and the neighboring houses were built on the ruins of a cemetery. You seem to know a lot about the history of this place. Where did you get so much information from?" "I was a member of that community, and I worked here as a graveyard in the Black Hope Cemetery, and about 60 bodies were buried here, and the last grave I dug was in 1939. I ask you to let them sleep in peace so that they let you live in peace." "Well, I'll think about it, thank you." The old man left, leaving Sam confused. After that meeting, the old man left, leaving Sam bewildered, and after deep thought, Sam decided to continue digging and insisted on digging the place specified by that man out of curiosity. After a long time of digging, 2 chests of wood were found, and after removing the dust from them, Sam opened them to find some worn-out bones in them, and he noticed a faint luster between the bones. And when he removed the dust from them, he found 2 wedding rings in each coffin, meaning that they belonged to a married couple. And when he examined the lids of the 2 coffins, he found that they belonged to Betty and Charles Thomas, who were among the African American slaves that the old men had spoken of. When Mrs. Judith knew about the cemetery, she got angry and forced her husband to bury the 2 coffins in one of the corners of the garden. And from that day, Mr. Heaney's house became a hotbed of strange phenomena. At nightfall, Judith saw the wall clock glowing with a blue light surrounding it. So Judith was surprised by this light, especially since she knows that this watch is not working and is not equipped with a power source. Judith tried to wake her husband, but he did not respond to her and went back to sleep. And one night, while Sam was at work, Judith heard the door of her house open. Judith thought that her husband had returned home. When she called his name, the response came to her with a whisper. She was terrified and told her husband what happened when he returned home, but he did not believe her and told her that she was delusional, especially after knowing about that cemetery. He continued digging until he found 2 coffins. Sam continued to lie to his wife until he had a terrifying situation that changed his view of the house and prompted him to think about leaving. While Sam was entering his house returning from work, he saw a shadow of a ghost moving in the corridor. Sam tried to chase him, but he headed towards the wardrobe, where he faded as if he had crossed through it. Sam did not understand what happened and shouted to his wife, and when they checked the wardrobe, Judith noticed the loss of her precious red shoes that she only wears on special occasions. And the next day, while wandering in the garden, Sam found those shoes placed on Betty's grave. Sam was shocked, and he told Judith, who assured him that this was not a joke. And when he looked at the tombstone, something really amazing caught his attention. Watch a ghost moving down the corridor. After this incident, Sam filed a lawsuit against the Harris Building Company and demanded compensation for not telling him that the house was built on an old cemetery, but he lost the case and incurred huge losses estimated at about $50,000 and had to move to another place. But another family, called the William family, was led by bad luck to that neighborhood where Mr. Bean William bought the house next to Heaney's house, and he and his wife, Jane, moved in. As Net Jane is fond of agriculture and garden work, and for this, she practiced her hobby in the back garden of their house. And from the first moment, Jane felt a bad feeling in that garden, and she saw 2 holes in the shape of a rectangle in the middle of the garden, and she asked her husband to fill those holes and level the ground so that she would planting flowers. But the 2 pits reappeared again, and the flowers withered, despite Jane's care for them. And this was repeated several times until Jane felt that the garden was hiding something strange. Especially since the old tree erected in the middle of the garden bears on its trunk an inscription of what looks like an arrow pointing to the place of those 2 holes, as she noticed that there were bones and feathers of birds around that tree. And after a short period of time, she discovered that the birds on that tree kill their young. And this is a strange thing that does not happen in the animal world, but the strange things that were happening in her house distracted her from searching for what was happening in the garden, as frightening shadows appeared frequently on the walls of this house, in addition to the overflow of sewage inside the house and the emission of bad smells from it. These things were also noticed by her husband, Ben, who claimed to have seen 2 ghosts enter the bedroom and stood at his wife Jane's head while she was sleeping, which prompted him to drag her from the bed until he knocked her to the floor. At exactly 5 o'clock in the morning, he noticed the smell of good coffee emanating from the kitchen, and the electric garage door opened automatically. As for their granddaughter Carly, who decided to spend her study vacation at her grandparents' house, she talked about feeling very cold in the rooms of the house despite the high summer heat, in addition to the breaking of sewage pipes and the flow of dirty water into the house for no reason. And after Mr. Bean knew about the Black Hope Cemetery and the story of the Henney family house, he filed a lawsuit against the real estate company because they did not tell them about that old cemetery. But he lost the case after a long legal struggle, while Jane decided to discover for herself what the grounds of that garden were hiding. So she picked up the shovel and decided to dig up the ground herself. Ben tried to prevent her, but she insisted on doing it herself. But soon she became tired, so her daughter Tina completed the digging, and after half an hour Tina suffered a heart attack and was taken by ambulance to the city hospital, and she died 2 days later. Which shocked William's family. So how could a 29-year-old girl die when she was not complaining of illness? That is why William's family decided to leave the house and move to Montana and settle there. Later, the couple wrote a book called Grave Secrets. The graves were exhumed and reburied. As for the rest of the people of Newport Street, they talked about some strange incidents that occurred in their homes, from the strange glow of electric lamps and the loss of some of their things, and other events, and they put them in a book they called Black Hope Horror. And after the controversy arose about the existence of a cemetery in that street, the construction company searched for the exact location of the cemetery, and the old engineering plans led them to the fact that the old tree in the house of the William family was mainly in the middle of that cemetery. And many graves were excavated in Sector No. 8 of the street. It was reburied in the city cemetery after they obtained the blessing of the priests, and after that, no complaint was recorded from the residents of the same street.